Am I on? Can you guys hear me okay? Thank you so much. It's such a blessing to be here. I'm going to talk in a few minutes about how this organization has absolutely changed my life and exactly the type of service and how it will change yours. My name is Gary Brecka. I'm a human biologist. I'm a biohacker. When I talk about my previous career, people seem to be a lot more interested in what I used to do than what I do now, so I'll just spend one quick minute telling you what I used to do. I was a mortality researcher for the insurance industry. So for 22 years, if I got 5 years of medical records on you and 5 years of demographic data, I could tell the insurance company how long you had to live to the month. And it didn't matter if you were 82 years old and terminally ill, or if you were 28 years old and you had perfect blood work and had never been to a doctor and felt great. We could tell exactly how many more months you had left on Earth. And the way that we did this was we got into a room with a bunch of really smart people, a bunch of PhDs and mathematicians and actuarial scientists and physicians and myself, a human biologist, and we disagreed on everything except one point. The thing that we agreed on was that every human being leaves this earth the same way. Everyone in this room will leave this earth the same way. It's called hypoxia. Lack of oxygen to the brain is the actual definition of death. So we knew that that was the end point. Only until that moment, we used to think about hypoxia as an event, a gunshot wound, a bus, a stroke, a heart attack. But the truth is, every single one of you in this room right now is on a curve, and it's predictable. It's called the hypoxic curve. It tells me how well your body uses oxygen. The better you manage oxygen, the longer you will live, the healthier you will be, the less brain fog you will have, the deeper your sleep, the better your response to exercise, the better your waking energy, the better your short-term memory, and it will provide for the absence of disease. In fact, how many of you have never heard me speak before? Okay. Those of you that have, you've heard this before because I say it on every podcast. I say it every time I take the stage. I say it on Instagram. I say it on Facebook. I say it as often as I can say it. The rest of you, I want you to take out a pen. Because the next sentence that I say will be the single most impactful sentence that you hear for the balance of your lifetime in terms of how many years you have left on Earth. This one sentence will not only impact how many more months you have left on Earth, but it will impact every facet of your health. How deeply you sleep, how much energy you have during the day, how strong your cognitive function is. It will drive your mood, your emotional state, your libido. Everything about you as a human being comes down to this one sentence. Do you guys want to know what it is? Yes. I'm not going to tell you. Thank you. I should charge for it. It's such a buildup, right? $5 a piece. Put it in the hat. And that is this. The presence of oxygen is the absence of disease. The presence of oxygen is the absence of disease. There was not one disease or pathological pathway that we researched in 22 years that did not have its origin in a state of hypoxia, a lack of blood oxygen. And while I was going through this career of becoming one of the top 5 certified expert witnesses in federal court for predicting mortality, I realized one day that these spreadsheets that I was looking at and all of this data that I was crunching and this database of 370 million lives that was in front of me, one day I woke up and I realized that there was human beings on the other side of these spreadsheets. And at the time, it was a felony for me to contact a patient or a doctor treating a patient, even if in the record I saw a life-threatening drug interaction. So for 22 years, I sat behind a thick glass wall and I watched blind people walk into traffic. And then I decided to make a change. 7 years ago, a beautiful angel came into my life. Her name's Sage Workinger, right there. She's my fiance. And I said, babe, I want to get out of this business. I want to take this information that I have and I want to touch the face of humanity. I want to change people's lives. I don't want to sit here and predict how long people have until they die. I want to sit here and impact how long people can live, right? I want to touch the face of humanity, and I don't know how to do it, but I want to start a wellness franchise. And I've never done it, but that's what I feel my calling is to do. And she said, let's do it. So 7 years ago, we started a company called Streamline Medical Group to touch the face of humanity. 13 months later, I met another beautiful angel. I met Elena Cardone and her husband, Grant. And they trusted me enough to become patients of mine. And 4 years later, they acquired my company, September of last year. And now it's 10X Health. And now I stand here in service of you because my mission is to change humanity by keeping people out of the system. In fact, as I went through my years of clinical research, and I started becoming less of a scientist and more of a humanist, as I stopped seeking success and I really started seeking significance, an interesting thing happened to me. How many of you have ever heard of the universal law of attraction? All right, how many of you believe in the universal law of attraction? Okay, good, because if you don't, you're about to. Because for 22 years, I never believed in any of that spiritual mumbo jumbo. Until one day, I found a law in the physical universe. It's a law in physics. You might want to write this down. It's called constructive interference. And it says that when two wavelengths of equal length meet, the size of the frequency doubles. Neither Einstein or Newton could originally explain this theory. But what this means is that you can get energy from conversation. You can get energy from what I'm telling you right now. You can get energy from the people around you, or they can take energy away from you. And so I started to go down this spiritual rabbit hole, and I found a research project called the Spain Scale of Emotion, S-P-A-N-E. Researchers were able to take 25,000 subjects and put them in a room, and they were able to measure the frequency leaving the human body. And they were able to isolate the frequency with such accuracy that they could tell the difference between somebody experiencing anger and passion, joy or arousal, elation or despair with that accuracy. And do you know what the most powerful frequency to leave the human body is?
Authenticity.
The frequency of authenticity. Authenticity is 4,000 times more powerful than love. Do you know when authenticity happens? Authenticity happens when your words are truthful and you believe what you're saying. I promise you, every woman that is going to take this stage today and tomorrow, do not admire them for their success, admire them for their authenticity. Right? Because if they lacked authenticity, they would never have achieved a level of success. And the people that seek success and don't seek significance never find authenticity. And so this was the most powerful frequency to harness and to leave the human body. It is so powerful that it can actually change the frequency of a person that you're talking to when your words are truthful and you believe what you're saying. So as I went down this spiritual rabbit hole, I said, well, where does this frequency come from? It comes from the brain. It comes from an area of the brain called the gray matter. Can you bring up the next slide? Nothing in my entire speaking career brings me greater pain than to share this with you ladies. But because I'm about to alienate all of my male counterparts. But frequency comes from an area of the brain called the gray matter. Can you go to the next slide? And it's official, and it just burns me to the core to admit this. But can you scroll up just a little bit? Women have more brain cells than men. Women have more brain cells than men. Can you go to the next clinical study? This is a fact. Oh, I know a lot of you guys are calling your spouse at the break. I told you so. In fact, when I found this clinical study, my fiance was in the shower, true story. I ran into the bathroom and I said, oh God, babe, you're not gonna believe what I just uncovered. She goes, duh. So you know what I did for the next 7 days? I tried to find a study that said that that wasn't true, so I found a second study. Can we scroll down here? No, go to the next one, the next slide. Is this the second one? I found a second study and it got worse. They not only have more brain cells, they have more brain cells in the gray matter. They have an increased capacity to process information. And this is the area of the brain where authenticity and frequency stems from. Women have more power to affect the universe around them than men do. This is why women can truly multitask, right? We are not able to multitask. Women actually have the physiology that allows them to multitask. Yeah, right here, there's evidence that women have more gray matter in their brains. I mean, come on, give me a break. Right. So knowing this, I said, how can I help these women harness the power of that brain? How can I help these women change the frequency in their body? Because guess where every cell in the human body gets its command from? It gets its command from the gray matter of the brain. It sets the tone and the frequency for every cell in your body. There are 32 trillion cells in the human body. Cancer starts in one. When on earth did we ever think 32 trillion to 1 was a fair fight? You have the power to heal. You have the power to change the physiology of your body by believing that you can change the physiology of your body. There are 4,500 documented cases of women curing breast cancer by changing the frequency that we send through our body. This is a fact. Now, I'm going to tell you the most dangerous thing that women do. And you do it every morning. And you actually take this processing power and this gray matter power and the power to harness this frequency, and you actually unconsciously turn it against yourself. And it's called pattern formatting, right? It's called pattern formatting. And what this means is that every day you take a photograph of your body, of your face, of your image. An average man in a month will take 151 mental images of himself. An average female will take 1,360,000. When you get ready in the morning, you don't stand 4 feet from the mirror, you stand 2 inches from the mirror. And it's not important enough to be 2 inches from the mirror, you gotta have a mirror that's concave so it amplifies what you're seeing 2 inches from your face. When was the last time you met somebody and went like this? It's really nice to see you. Is that a new pore on the upside down of your nose? My goodness, I never noticed that eyelash that's dipping 13 degrees to the left. But it's great to see you. So what happens during the day is you have the last recorded image of your face. You record and store your imperfections. And you are thinking of your imperfections while you are communicating with other people. Now, when you think about your imperfections and you're communicating a message to another human being, do you think that you're emanating the frequency of authenticity? No, because your mind is somewhere else. Now, you're so good at processing, the other person doesn't notice this, but that little roll over the top of your belt, the nails that have grown out too far and left a little space behind the cuticle, the pimple that nobody else can see, right? My fiance wakes up in the morning, she goes, babe, my face is a mess. I go, what part of it? Like, I can't. What's a mess? Look at this right here. I'll get the convex mirror out here. I can't see it, right? And so you're recording that, you're thinking about that while you're communicating with another person, and it interrupts the frequency. You know that they say women are more intuitive. Have you ever heard of that? Thank you. That's not true. Women are more sensitive to frequency. That's what you're picking up, right? Men, we suck at this, right? Every time someone's come into my life that future was going to screw me, my fiance told me about it a month to a year before it happened, right? Because that intuition is as sensitive to frequency. So women, when they interact with other people, they are looking at your eyes and they are talking to you, but trust me when I tell you, they are sensitive to your frequency. If you lack authenticity, they know it. They might not be able to put a finger on it, but they know it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to wipe out pattern formatting, okay? I'm going to give you a little exercise I want you to do tomorrow, Okay, and this, by the way, this is science. This is absolutely proven. If you read this page, this will tell you, that science lecture that I put up there before, it will show you that this works. So tomorrow, what we're going to do is we are going to send a frequency through our body to every single cell in our body, and we are going to change the self-image that we have so that we harness the frequency of authenticity, and you are going to see your world change. Thank you. So here's what I want you to do. The last thing I want you to do when you're done getting ready in the morning, take a measuring tape if you have to, is I want you to stand 6 feet from the mirror. At 6 feet, our stereoscopic vision, because we have stereoscopic vision, lines up and it removes our imperfections. Maybe that's why social distancing is 6 feet, so everybody looks beautiful. I mean, that's my philosophy, right? What's that? Oh, don't use the Sharpie? There you go. So what I want you to do tomorrow, right, because words matter, thoughts matter, images matter, and frequency matters, is I want you to stand 6 feet from the mirror, and I want you to look right into that mirror, and I want you to say these words. You're beautiful. You were created in God's image. You have a purpose. And your purpose is to change the face of humanity. Your purpose is to infect and touch people's well-being. Because whether you're a real estate agent or a health services professional or you drive a truck or own a beauty store, if you are in service of other people, if you want to impact people's well-being, then the universe will reward you with wealth. The root word of the word wealth is well-being. It means to be well. Right? So don't think of yourself as selling somebody a piece of real estate. Think of yourself as giving them a place to raise their children, a place to make love, a place for them to rest and relax and call their home. Change the way you think about how you are in service to humanity, and it will materially change your life, and it will materially impact your success. So you're going to say, you're beautiful. You were created by God. You are wealthy. You are here for a purpose. And the purpose is to impact people's well-being. And let that be the last image that you record. For the balance of that day, pattern formatting will not interrupt your life. You will end pattern formatting by doing that. Awesome. So, woo! So now we know that women are smarter than men. I want to go back to some of the research that we did during this 22-year period because it was fascinating to me. Over this 22 years, so one of the things that we did when we talked about and we looked at how long people had left on this earth was we tried to find out what factors are impacting people's lives. And what we found was that in almost every single case of disease, pathology, lack of energy, weight gain, brain fog, poor sleep, poor response to exercise, in almost every single case, it came down to one or two missing raw materials in the human body. You see, every day that you wake up and you put things into the human body, everything, it's amino acid, a mineral, a vitamin, a nutrient, nothing that you put into your body is used in the format that you put it in. Your body goes through a process called methylation. It changes what you put in into the usable form. If your body cannot perform this function, then it's as if that nutrient doesn't exist. So for example, we pull crude oil out of the ground, but you can't put crude oil in your gas tank. Your car doesn't understand crude oil. It has to be refined into gasoline, and that fuel source goes into the car. In human beings, this process is called methylation. And so what happens is you put things into the human body, your body methylates them, and then it uses it. If it cannot methylate, it cannot use that source. And what happens is the presence of pathology and disease. In fact, does anyone know what the leading cause of postpartum depression is? The leading cause of postpartum depression in pregnant females. The prenatal vitamin. 44% of the women in this room have a gene mutation called MTHFR. I'm not going to tell you what the nickname is for this gene mutation. MTH. Yes, it is called that gene, MTHFR. 44% of you have this gene mutation. It is a complete inability to process folic acid. If you can't process folic acid and your OBGYN tells you to take a prenatal vitamin with 1,400% of the folic acid, guess what happens? You go nuts and you become depressed. Eventually the pregnancy ends and you stop taking the prenatal vitamin and the symptoms go away. So you blame it on the pregnancy, not on the vitamin. This happens to thousands of women because you don't know that you have this issue. In fact, one of the reasons why we are here today somewhere is, where's my clinical team? Oh, there they are back there. Stand up, guys. Stand all the way up. Woo! There is the 10X Health team in the back. We have a suite in the Hibiscus, Suite 501, and we're doing two things there today. We are pulling biomarkers in the blood, and we will tell you the 5 actionable genes in your body. Because if MTHFR is broken, you can't process folic acid. If another one is broken, you suffer from anxiety. If another one is broken, you suffer from depression. If another one is broken, you have ADD, ADHD, OCD. And all of this can be fixed. So one of the things that I love to do to prove this to you is I want to open the floor for 15 minutes, and I'm going to let you give me any ailment that you or anyone you love suffers from. ADD, ADHD, OCD, manic depression, bipolar, anxiety, depression, rheumatoid arthritis, weight gain, whatever it is, poor sleep. You're going to tell that to me, and right here on this stage in front of you, I'm going to tell you the missing raw material that leads to that condition. Because we have the power to heal. The human body is a magnificent machine. When we thought we would hand over 32 trillion cells to big pharma and trust them with their poisons to change the direction of our health goes lost on me, right? Human beings were meant to do what we do right now. I'm telling you right now, if you don't load a bone, it won't strengthen. If you don't tear a muscle, it won't grow. And if you don't challenge your immune system, it will weaken. Human beings were meant to do what we are doing right here, right now. So one of these 5 actionable genes, when these genes break, we get anxiety, we get ADD, we get ADHD, we get OCD. Have any of you ever suffered from depression, or how many of you know somebody who has suffered from depression? Look at the hands in the room. 44% of this country is on an antidepressant. 44% of Americans are on an antidepressant. Do you know how we define depression in this country? We define depression as an inadequate supply of the neurotransmitter serotonin. If your serotonin is low, you are by definition depressed. So wouldn't you think that the cure would be to raise serotonin? If I'm depressed because I have low serotonin, then why don't I raise serotonin? Well, that's not what we do. You know what we do to people that are depressed? We put them on an SSRI, a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. We take what little serotonin you have and we ration it. So by definition, it never ends depression because it never raises serotonin. And this is why I have patients come in all the time to 10X Health and say, Gary, I've been on antidepressants for 18 years. I go, when did you think it was going to kick in? Right? What's the definition of insanity? Right? So if we know that serotonin is made in the gut, there's a factory right here in the gut, and 90% of it is made in the gut before it travels up the vagus nerve to the brain, we can turn that factory back on, and in 14 days, you are no longer depressed. Because you didn't have depression. You just had low serotonin. And as soon as we fix that gene mutation, serotonin skyrockets and depression takes a back seat. So one of the things that we want to do is change the face of humanity by empowering human beings to heal themselves. I want to give every single, thank you. I want to give every single person in this room a roadmap to optimal health. We have a balance sheet for our business. We have a planner for our day. We have a schedule for our children. We have a map that gets us to and from places that we've never been before, but most of us have no idea what's going on in our bodies. Most of us do not have a roadmap for optimal health. There are 64 biomarkers in your blood. If you get these 64 biomarkers, in fact, if you want to do it while you're here, you can go to the suite. They will pull the blood on you. If I get those 64 biomarkers, I can turn you into a superwoman. And if you add those 5 actionable genes, I will permanently change the trajectory of your life. So if you do nothing else while you're here, make sure that you get your roadmap for optimal health. So do we have a microphone? Because I want to go to work. I'm here to be in service of you. So instead of me sitting up here and trying to prove to you how smart I am, I want to hear from you about what is affecting you. And right here in front of you on this stage, I'm going to show you what raw material is missing in the human body. Yes, ma'am, standing up in the back next to the camera, in the white. Yeah, closest to me. Can someone get her a microphone? Lupus. Okay, so lupus, like other autoimmune diseases, is an issue where the human body loses its affinity, right, to see the difference between human tissue and foreign tissue. This happens a lot, by the way. Rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune diseases of all kinds, right? Lupus is linked to a gene mutation. In fact, if you look at ADAMTS1, ADAMTS1, you will see that 97.4% of lupus patients have this gene mutation. 97.4. It is fixable. It is a lack of ability to break down the amino acid L-tyrosine and methionine. Write those two down. When the body doesn't have these amino acids, it not only cannot quiet the mind, which is why lupus patients are night owls and have very poor sleep, but it can't quiet the mind. It also cannot see the difference between foreign and human tissue, and so it begins to attack itself. Modern medicine puts suppressive drugs on the immune system to stop the immune system from doing its job. What we want to do is help the immune system see clearly. And you will find that that can eviscerate. Yes, ma'am. Right here in the red. Anxiety. Oh, this is a big one. This is a core competency of mine. First of all, I'm going to prove to you right now that anxiety is not coming from your outside environment. Right? 52% of Americans report either suffering from anxiety on a daily basis or having suffered from anxiety at some point in their lifetime. So here's how anxiety works, right? If you or someone you know has anxiety, I want you to ask them these 3 questions, and this will prove that it's not coming from your outside environment. Number 1, have you had anxiety on and off throughout your entire lifetime? Usually the answer is yes, because it's a gene mutation. I'm going to get to that in a second. Number 2, can you point to the specific trigger that causes it? Most of the time they will say no. I can wake up in the morning with anxiety. I can be driving home from work on an otherwise innocuous day and I can be overwhelmed by anxiety. If that happens, it's not coming from your outside environment. It's not coming from what we call a cluster of symptoms. Abraham Lincoln was diagnosed 150 years ago with depression by a cluster of symptoms. We use the same diagnosis today to diagnose people with anxiety and depression. The third thing I want you to ask them is, do anti-anxiety medications work? And they will say no. They make me feel like a zombie. Because anxiety is coming from your physiology, right? If you can't lower a compound in the human body called homocysteine, it's the most inflammatory compound in the human body. If you can't lower this compound, then you get anxiety. And this is why your anxiety is not triggered. Because when you wake up in the morning, your homocysteine level is high, anxiety is high. It has nothing to do with your outside environment. This is fixable. There is a cheek swab that we do. We take a Q-tip, we rub it on the inside of your cheek, and in 2 weeks, the information comes back from the lab and it tells us exactly what gene is broken and how to supplement for it so that anxiety eviscerates. I don't know if you've seen if you follow me on Instagram, we recently did this with Bella Hadid. She was just at our unit in the Porsche Design Tower because she very publicly suffers from rampant anxiety. And when she came to us, we put her on a vitamin and amino acid protocol, and she hasn't had an anxiety attack in almost 4 months. Right? And I want to do that for you guys as well. Yes, ma'am, in the orange it looks like. Celiac. So celiac disease. So celiac, irritable bowel, celiac is a true sensitivity to gluten, right? It's a disease in the bowel, right? And it causes a true sensitivity to gluten. I'm going to throw celiac in there with every other disease in the bowel. Irritable bowel syndrome, complete nonsense, by the way. Irritable bowel syndrome, celiac disease, ulcerative colitis, diverticulitis, all of these issues of the gut. Let me explain to you what's going on here. The most important thing with the gut is not the contents of the gut. It is the speed of the gut. This is the most overlooked thing in all of bariatric medicine. This is only going to take me about 1 minute. The human intestinal tract is 30 feet long. At one end, you got the stomach, right? At the other end, you have the rectum, right? This is just like a conveyor belt. You remember Henry Ford? He wasn't actually made famous for the automobile. What was Henry Ford made famous for? The assembly line. The assembly line was a conveyor belt, and you put parts on it at one end, and the conveyor belt would move the parts along, and about every 6 feet, someone would stand there and tinker with the part. It would move, they would tinker with the part, it would move, they would tinker with the part, and by the time it reached the end of that conveyor belt, that part was completely assembled. The human intestinal tract is the same way. It's a conveyor belt. It's 30 feet long, only instead of having people standing there performing a job, it's graded by pH. So as you get towards the stomach, it is more acidic. As you get towards the rectum, it is more basic. What would happen in Henry Ford's factory if he walked in one day and doubled the speed of the conveyor belt? The whole line would break down. Why? Because you're taking a guy's job here and handing it to this person, and you're taking this person's job and you're handing it to this person. This guy is not trained to do his job. He is not trained to do my job. This is exactly how the human intestinal tract works. Acidic bacteria handle things that leave the stomach. Basic bacteria handle things about to leave the rectum. If I increase the speed of the gut, I am pushing acidic contents into a basic media, and function perverts. Gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, irritability, and cramping. Not coming from what you eat. The next time you think you have a food allergy, ask yourself this question. Can I ever eat that food and not have a reaction? You'll find that the answer is yes. That right there means it's not an allergy. Allergies are not transient. You're not allergic to milk on Monday morning, unallergic to it Wednesday afternoon, and re-allergic on Saturday. That's not how it happens, right? People come into me all the time, and they're like, Gary, I'm allergic to wheat, gluten, soy, corn, dairy, and blueberries. I go, okay, stop right there. You'd be dead, right? You're telling me you're allergic to all the essential amino acids. That can't happen. So this test is not going to help you. What will help you is looking at the 5 genetic mutations in the body and fixing the gene that runs the gut. Put the conveyor belt at the right speed, the gut can perform the job that it's designed to do, right? If there are 8 people standing on this stage and I have to pass something from this person to this person to this person to this person, I cannot go like this. Does that make sense? That sequence is important. So one of the things that we want to do is restore that sequence for you. Yes, another question. Yes, ma'am. Over here in the white. Hashimoto's? Okay. Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I'm going to teach you more in the next 60 seconds about the thyroid than most board-certified endocrinologists know. I call it Hashimoto's nonsense, right? Hashimoto's nonsense. This is a fancy way of just pushing thyroid medication. You want to talk about a pandemic in this country? We have a pandemic of medicating organs in the body that have done nothing wrong. We are constantly holding organs in our body responsible for crimes that they do not commit. So bear with me here. And by the way, I'm a scientist and not an artist. Okay, so please don't critique my... Let me make it a caricature. Okay, gotcha. All right. All right, there you are, okay? So the thyroid gland, and Grant told me, he's going to kill me for saying this. Gary, don't teach him anything. I know you love to teach, but I can't help myself, all right? So I'm going to show you guys what's going on with the thyroid. The thyroid gland is right here in the neck. It produces 2 hormones. It produces T4, and it produces something called T3. Only here's the little known secret about the thyroid. It only produces 20% of this hormone of T3. Yet Hashimoto's is diagnosed as clinically low T3. It's also called hypothyroid. But wait a second, we're diagnosing hypothyroid, but it's only responsible for 20% of the thyroid in my bloodstream. So the question is, where does the rest of it come from? Where does the 80% come from? I mean, if I was a detective and a crime had just been committed and there was an 80% chance that one guy did it and a 20% chance that somebody else did it, I'd probably investigate the 80% guy first, right? That's not what we do. We immediately hold the thyroid responsible for a crime it only has 20% chance of committing. So where does the rest of that hormone come from? In Hashimoto's, it comes from T4. It's methylated. This is that process called methylation that I was just talking about. The raw material is T4, the body converts it into T3. This doesn't even happen in the thyroid. Yet when it's low, we medicate the thyroid. The only guarantee if you're on thyroid medication is that your dosage will increase. That's the only guarantee. Why? Because you are killing the thyroid. Now, eventually, it succeeds in completely beating the thyroid into submission, and now you are permanently reliant on levothyroxine, Synthroid, Armour, or a natural dissected thyroid. But if we understood that T4 is converted into T3 by the process called methylation, and that is the suite of B vitamins, pyridoxine, riboflavin, thiamine, niacin, and pantothenic acid, and if we put those back into the human body, it can start to perform this function again, and the thyroid disease goes away. People say it all the time, Gary, you cured my thyroid. I said, no, I didn't. There was nothing wrong with your thyroid. I fixed how your body uses the raw material. This is what 10X Health does, right? We fix people by empowering the human body to do what it does best. I promise you this, there is no better hormone in the human body than one you produce yourself, right? So I would much rather turn your own thyroid hormone on than have you reliant on outside. Yes, ma'am. Right up here in the front. Insomnia. Yeah, that's a big one. So let's talk about insomnia, right? Because what is insomnia? I'm going to tell you what insomnia is, right? And what it's not. Insomnia is not an inability to sleep. It has nothing to do with how tired you are or the lack of how tired you are. It has to do with whether or not you can quiet your mind. You see, people that can't sleep don't sleep for one major reason, because as their environment quiets, their mind wakes up. Right? So most of you that have insomnia, you will lay down tired, right? You'll lay in bed tired, and your mind turns on, right? And now it's your mind keeping you awake. It's not that your body's not tired. And why does your mind keep you awake? Well, because just like we create thought, we also dismantle thought. Right? Human beings actually create thought, and there's a gene called COMT, stands for catechol O-methyltransferase. You don't need to know that. I just want you to know I'm smart. It's called COMT. We can test for this gene mutation. If you have this gene mutation, you lack an essential amino acid called L-methionine. When L-methionine goes up into the mind, it allows your body to break down thought and quiet the mind. If you have insomnia, I'll tell you right now what you think about all night. Nonsense. You think about nonsense. Does my belt match my shoes? Did I get everything on my grocery list today? Did I return that Instagram post? Do I have a new pore on the bottom side of my, right? You don't think about earth-shattering, life-changing thoughts that should keep you up at night. It's not death of a loved one, right? It's nonsense like that. Why? Because you cannot quiet the mind. This is the same thing that leads to attention deficit disorder, ADD, ADHD, OCD. This is an inability to quiet the mind. In fact, these diseases should be completely relabeled because they're not an attention deficit disorder at all. They are an attention overload disorder, right? People that have ADHD, imagine them sitting in the front seat of a movie theater by themselves, and there's a stage in their mind. And as they have a thought, it's like an actor walking to the front of that stage and engaging them in a dialogue. Only when that thought is over, this person should exit the stage. When you can't quiet the mind, this person stays. And then another one shows up. And then another one shows up. And then another one shows up. And now you are paying attention to too many things. It's not an inability to focus. It's an inability to focus on so many things. As soon as you put the right raw material, amino acid, back into the brain, that eviscerates, right? Because the cure now is to speed the body up with amphetamines to meet the pace of the mind. That's a terrible solution. Yes, ma'am. Fibromyalgia. So fibromyalgia, like chronic fatigue syndrome and like so many other syndromes, is not a diagnosis. Fibromyalgia doesn't exist. Fibromyalgia are trigger points all throughout the body that cause pain, right? And they say that when you have this soreness and this achiness, you have this condition, fibromyalgia, right? It's like irritable bowel syndrome. It's just a bunch of words that they put together and say that's your diagnosis. But it's not a diagnosis, it's just a bunch of stuff in the same category. So fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome come from the same place, right? They come from a lack of the most important nutrient in the human body. Does anybody know how many vitamins a human being can make on our own? There are hundreds of vitamins in your bloodstream right now. How many vitamins can we make by ourselves? 1. Vitamin D3, cholecalciferol. It is the single most important compound in the human body. When God made us, he made us with the ability to create a single vitamin on our own. There is not one cell in the entire human body that doesn't have a receptor site for that vitamin. When it's deficient, your brain begins to ration it because your brain is nasty. Your brain takes everything for itself. It's like the chubby little Kim Jong-un of dictators, right? Sits up there in his big gold chair. It's like, I need some calcium, steal it from the bone. I need some amino acids, strip it from lean muscle. Doesn't care how pretty you are, doesn't care whether you're sleeping, doesn't care about hair, skin, and nails, cares about itself. When vitamin D3 gets low, it strips it from insertion points in the muscle, which causes fibromyalgic pain, trigger points in those locations. Promise you that that is a very, very likely part of your diagnosis. And just looking at the pigment of your skin, you're at 85% risk for clinically deficient vitamin D3. Yes, ma'am?
Weight gain.
Weight gain. So weight gain, this is a big one, right? There are a whole lot of myths about weight gain, but I'm going to clear this up for you right now, okay? And then I'll take 2 more, and then I just want to wrap up. How am I doing on time? I know I stole some of your time, Elena. How much? 5 minutes? Okay, so we're going to hurry. All right, so weight gain, and then I'll get to the ladies in the back that are coming out of their skin. So weight gain works like this. You see, once we understand the physiological rules of how the body burns energy, we can strip fat off our body. Because I assume when you say weight gain, you mean fat, right? So when most people say I want to lose weight, they really mean I want to lose fat. So here is how your body burns energy. By the way, there are no exceptions to this rule. I see so much bro science on the internet. Call it, hey bro. I see so much bro science on the internet trying to conflict with the laws of physiology, but here's how it works. Okay, number 1, number 2, number 3. Here's how your body burns energy. If you have sugar in your blood, which is glucose, if you have sugar in your blood, your body will always go to that energy source first. In fact, when sugar rises in your blood, your body secretes something called insulin. Most people think the primary role of insulin is to lower blood sugar. That's not true. The primary role of insulin is to block any other form of energy utilization in the body. If insulin is high, you cannot burn fat. It's physiologically impossible to burn fat in a high sugar environment. So sugar will burn out of your body first. The next source of energy is something called glycogen. That's stored sugar, stored in your liver, stored in your muscles. You have a 20-minute reserve of glycogen in your body, 20 minutes. And then your body can get energy from lean muscle, or it can get energy from fat. This is where everybody makes the biggest mistake in trying to lose weight. So I have women all the time, and not to pick on ladies, but this happens in 3 to 1, women coming into the clinic and say, Gary, I don't get it. I wake up in the morning, I'm fasted. I have a cup of black coffee. I go to Orange Theory. I go hammer down for 55 minutes. I've been doing that 5 days a week for 3 months. I haven't lost a single pound. How is that possible? Like I'm not even eating. I go, well, you're not eating, but your body is. It's just eating you. Because what happens when you don't have any sugar in your bloodstream is you get to the gym, and now you have a 20-minute reserve of glycogen. This is 20 minutes. 20 minutes into your workout, you're out of energy. Your body needs energy now. It takes 3 minutes to liquefy lean muscle. It takes 5 hours to turn fat into energy. Where do you think your body's getting energy? It's burning your own lean muscle. So what happens is you're going hammer down on the treadmill. You are actually digesting your own lean muscle. And then that night, you're building it back. And then the next day you work out, and then you build it back. And you work out, and you build it back. So I'm going to tell you something. There's something called 30-30-30. I've never seen anything in my life strip fat off of a human being faster than this. I wish I could have patented it. There's an entire book written by Tim Ferriss called The 4-Hour Body explaining this whole theory. It says 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking, followed by 30 minutes of steady state cardiovascular exercise. Bring your heart rate down to below 135 beats a minute. Do that for a month and watch it eviscerate. Woo! Yeah. The second thing that you need to do is you should have, look at your blood work and look at your hormone levels, because if estrogen is high, estrogen's nasty, right? Estrogen dominance is nasty. It'll make you the wicked witch of the West, but it will also hold water. Yes, ma'am. 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking, followed by 30 minutes of steady state cardiovascular exercise. Steady state cardio is where your heart rate is at or below 135 beats a minute. You should be able to talk on the phone, read a Kindle. You are not panting, right? As soon as you go hammer down, your body switches sources. It will switch to lean muscle, right? So, unless you have amino acids in your bloodstream. You burn fat at rest. You do not burn fat during exercise. You burn fat at rest. Okay, I'll take one more and then I want to go through. Yes, ma'am, all the way in the back. Oh, no, I said those ladies in the back. Right back behind the camera. Right there with the phone. Because you're just going crazy.
I said infertility.
I'm sorry?
Infertility.
Oh, so infertility. So infertility is an issue with something called adhesion, right? How the egg implants into the uterine wall. This process of the egg meeting the uterine wall is called adhesion, right? And the process of adhesion is governed by methylation. You can do a cheek swab, look at those 5 actionable genes in the human body, fix the 2 genes, MTR and MTRR, that are broken, and you will skyrocket your chances of infertility, not having infertility. In fact, infertility is also linked to repeated ectopic pregnancies and repeated miscarriages, natural miscarriages, because this process of the egg implanting into the uterine wall, this adhesive process, is governed by 2 genes. If they're broken, you need to supplement for their function. MTR and MTRR. Google that. MTRR and fertility, and you're going to see hordes of clinical research on it. So guys, here's what I'm going to do, because I know we're getting short on time. I would love to see every one of you in the Hibiscus Suite sometime over the next 2 days. I want you to get a roadmap for optimal health. I want you to know the 64 biomarkers in your body that determine how long you will live and every aspect of your being optimal. I want you to get the 5 genetic markers in your body so that we can turn you into super women. All right? Please, guys, see my clinical team, and let's do this. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you so much.